Can you really win on parlays? Well, I'm going to break down exactly the numbers and show you guys a graph on exactly what parlays are and the reason why so many people in the industry actually lose every single time they put parlays in. I'm going to also go through and show you guys, well, there might just be a way where you can actually win if you are doing parlays, but you have to do them the correct way. And I'm going to show you guys step by step how you can do that. So let's go ahead and jump into the whiteboard, and I'm going to show you guys exactly how we can critique and break down parlays to see if we can actually somehow turn a profit. So first off, what are parlays? Parlays are when you're putting multiple teams or props together and they all have to hit. Now I know there are certain sites like Prize Picks, Underdogs, where you could put in 4 or 5 teams, 4 or 5 players, and you only have to hit 4 out of the 5 and whatnot. But I'm going to show you guys right now how parlaying actually works. And the reason why, like I said, so many people end up losing when they put parlays into their betting, because it shows that 99, this is a crazy stat, 99% of sports bettors have put in a parlay bet. And I would think almost every single one has. All right, even you take 1%, it's hard for me to believe that 1% hasn't put a parlay bet in, because everybody that dabbles into sports betting or even has just started to get brand new into the industry, they're all fed the information to put in parlays. They want to bet parlays. Every single person that I've ever spoke to has put a parlay in. Now, why do they always lose? Well, I'm going to show you exactly the reason why they always end up losing. This is what a normal 3-team parlay that your average sports bettor puts in. This is what it looks like. All right, so we have minus 110, minus 110, minus 110. They put those 3 player props, teams, over-unders, totals, whatever it is, spreads. They put it all together. They put 3 teams at minus 110. Well, the payout for that is plus 596. Okay, so that means put $100 down, you win $596. Now, let's just say probability-wise, because usually at minus 110, probability-wise, 50% chance it's a coin flip. Minus 110 plays are usually coin flips. So let's say 50% probability for this play, and this play. What does that mean? That means that all 3 of these at 50% apiece have to occur for you to win. What's the percentage of that actually happening? The percentage of all 3 of these actually hitting is 12.5%. So very low, obviously, right off the bat. And it's just 3 teams. So there's some people out there that are putting in 5, 6, 7, 10, 15 legs on a parlay. So you can only imagine what the percentage is on those. This is just 3. 12.5% chance of hitting that. Now, let's go ahead and take a look at why does everybody lose when they do this. When they're putting in minus 110 parlays, why do they lose? Well, they lose because you have to see this right here. Okay, plus 596 means that if you lost 5 straight times betting a parlay, betting this parlay, you'd be down $500, right? But if you won that 6th time, you'd be up $96. So that needs to occur for you to be able to be profitable doing this long term. Now, how can you make that happen? How can you hit 20 to 25% at doing this type of parlay when you only have a 12.5% chance of that happening if these are all 50% apiece, the probability of that happening? This is where everybody loses. They lose long term trying to do this because you're trying to hit 20 to 25% long term to turn a small profit when you only have a 12.5% chance of being able to do that long term. So long term, all it's doing is just eating your bankroll up. Just eating it up. Because you're trying to hit this percentage, and this is the actual probability of that happening. And you're going to hit in this range right here rather than this range. So you're getting eaten up left and right because you're not hitting 20 to 25% on these parlays. Nobody is. So they're losing money in increments. They're losing and losing and losing. Then once they get that feeling, like I said, of every 5th or 6th time, if they get lucky, if every 5th or 6th time, because like I said, this is 12% probability here of you doing this. So that means pretty much 1 out of every almost 9 tries, 8 or 10 tries, they're going to hit this. When they do hit that, they get that feeling like, oh man, I won that parlay. Like it is possible for me to be able to win. I can actually do this. So their brain makes them think that like, oh, this is possible. I can make money. But if they're not tracking it, they don't realize it took them like 10 tries to be able to get this win. And they've already lost probably $1,000, but then they recoup $600. They're still down $400. They don't realize that because their brain makes them think that, oh, without tracking it, I feel like a winner. I feel like I did this. Yeah, that parlay smacked. I can do that again. I can go back and try that again. So what do? They go back and they try it again, and then the same rotation happens. That you have a 12% chance of hitting. You have to hit in this percent, but you can never get to that percentage right there. So you just keep that cycle of losing increments over time. And that's if you're lucky, because some people could go like 20 times of betting plays like this and never hit that parlay. Okay? And then sometimes people get lucky after the second or third try and end up hitting this. Then it's even worse, because then, like I said, they think they can do that long term. And these are the probabilities. You can't fight the probabilities. Probability is probability. What is going to happen long term speaks in the percentages. You can't fight that. All right? There's nothing you can do about that, because that is exactly the reason and the rotation of parlay bettors and why they end up losing. Now, let's talk about the flip side of this. Can we figure out a way to be able to make this work somehow, to flip the probabilities here to where this number could be higher over here than this number, and somehow we can turn a profit long term some way? Well, I have a couple examples that I could show you of how you can do this. Okay? Now, of course, like if you've watched any of my content, I don't recommend being a parlay bettor. I don't recommend it whatsoever. But I do recommend you knowing probability and the chances of you actually winning the certain bet that you put in. So let's talk about this, for example. Let's say we have 3-team again, minus 250, a minus 300, a minus 300. These are the plays that we're looking at, okay? Let's say that we ran the probability percentages to these certain plays. The probability of these plays actually occurring. Like I said before, the minus 110 would have been 50% if we ran those, right? Let's say the probability here for minus 250 play, and it's a player prop, it's an 85% chance that that ends up happening. The minus 300 play, let's say there's 90%. Let's say there's 90% here. Now, I'm not saying this 90%, 85% is what the odds dictate. I'm not saying that, because that is not what the odds dictate. A minus 300 play doesn't have a 90% chance of winning. What I'm saying is when you dive deeper into the play and you're able to see exactly what the percentage of that play actually winning is. Like, let's say, for example, this is like Jason Tatum over 20 points, and he has an 85% probability of doing that. That's what I mean. I'm not saying that every minus 250 is going to have an 85% chance of winning, or every minus 300 is going to have a 90% chance. Because that's where a lot of people make mistakes as well when they're doing this type of parlay, where they're putting favorites and mashing favorites together. They don't know the true probability of the play that they're putting in. So they could be putting in a minus 250 play that only has a 50% chance of winning. So if they do that, there's no different than what we're doing before, that last page that I showed you guys. But if we're doing implied probability here of exactly 85%, 90%, 90%, and you found 3 plays just like this, the odds for that comes out to plus 149. Okay, so what does that mean? That means that we got to win at least 50% of the time. At least. If we're winning 50% of the time, then we're going to be able to profit. That means if you lose one and then you win one, well, now you're up $49. Okay, you made a little bit of a profit. What is the probability of this occurring, though? That is 68.85%. So we got a little bit of an edge there, a little bit of wiggle room. But, like I said, most people, the mistake that they make is they mash a couple favorites together. But those favorites don't actually have a true probability percentage like this. The minus 300 that they're playing only has 60% chance of winning. The minus 300 they're playing here, 75% chance. The minus 250 here, a 55% chance. Well, you put those together, now we're going below 50%. You see how we flip-flopped again. You have to find the actual probability here, the true probability. And like I've told you guys before, if you want to learn exactly how to find true probability in all the plays that you are playing day in and day out, I teach this. All you got to do is click the link in the description, and I will show you guys and teach you guys exactly how you could find implied probability on every single play that you're looking at. So you can implement this type of stuff into your sports betting and not be that person that continuously loses all the time and has no idea why they keep losing, and they just think that the sports betting industry is fixed or it's rigged or any of that stuff. It's not. You just suck. That's just really what it comes down to. You don't understand the math that goes behind it. So if you put these together and you have implied probability for these plays, and you get a 68% chance of winning, almost 69% chance of winning, and the odds dictate a 50% chance of what you need to win to be able to profit, if you can do that, you are going to turn a profit. Now, it's not crazy, obviously. Like I said, you win one, lose one, you're going to make $49, but you're still turning a profit. You're not in that vicious cycle of you're losing a little bit every single time you're doing it, and then it's just chipping away at your bankroll. Okay, instead you're making a little bit of a gain here. But, like I said, the mistake that people make, they will go and just throw these together without doing any type of research on the actual probability of that event actually occurring. And they think that they're just going to win. Because that's not how it works. Because if you just take straight probability on these numbers, on these odds, a minus 250, and I'm just going to spitball it here because I don't really have it written down for me, but a minus 250 has probably about a 68 to 70% chance of winning right off the bat. A 300 has like probably 74% chance. So if you wrote those down and you did 66, 74, 74, you're going to get under 50% of that, all three of these occurring. So this is where everybody loses as well when they try to mash a bunch of favorites together. Which brings me to my next example. Okay, my next example is what a lot of people do as well. So they'll take real heavy favorites and mash them together. So a minus 1200, or minus 500. And what happens? One of these end up losing, usually. That's what happens. One of them end up losing. So you get disheartened there. You think like, oh, like I can't do this. Like I can't win doing that. Well, look what happens here. If you put a minus 1200, minus 500 together, mash them together, three-teamer, comes out to be minus 245. Okay, so minus 245. Now, what does this mean here? This means we got to win over 70% of the time doing this to be able to be profitable. Now, the mistake that people make, again, is they will just mash these together without understanding true probability of what those percentages are of the play that they're doing. So they'll mash, a team, let's say a team that's minus like 14 or whatever, they'll take the money line, all right? And they'll do the same thing here. They'll take a player prop that's even worse. The problem is they don't know the true probability behind those plays they're putting in. They're just blindly throwing in high odds plays to try to get what they think is a better shot at winning, when they don't realize that, well, this minus 1200 play could be, a 70% chance of winning. This one could be 85% chance, and this one could be 75%. Well, if you put those all together, you're going to get below 70%, 71%. You're not going to be able to win. Okay, you're going to be chipping away. How do you actually win doing that? Well, how you win is, again, you have to find the actual probability of that event occurring, and it needs to be high. Okay? It needs to have a high percentage. So let's say, for example, I wrote a couple down here that usually in the NFL, this is what you'll see for like a minus 1200 type of play. And they're stupid no-brainer plays of what you would think, right? So like minus 1200 would be like Patrick Mahomes to pass for at least 120 yards in a game. Well, if you went through the probability on that, he probably almost did that every single game, except maybe one game. So probability of that could be 95 to almost 100%. Same thing here. Hurts to throw for 100 yards in a game. If you go through, maybe he did that in every single game except for maybe one. So his probability is 98% there. A.J. Brown to have 25 receiving yards. Maybe he did that in most of the games. Maybe he didn't do it in one or two. And that comes out to 90%. Well, now what happens here is we found those type of plays that actually had that true probability of those happening. We mash those together. We have an 83.8% chance of all three of those occurring, and you being able to hit all three of those. Now we only need to hit in that 71 to a little bit further range to be able to be profitable. And if we're having an 83.8% chance of winning that, guess what? Long term, again, we are chipping away and we're gaining a little bit. Rather than just throwing these together and not knowing true probability on what those numbers are, and it's actually negative equity that you're having, and you're betting on something that has 60% chance of winning at, minus 1200, minus 1200, minus 500, but you need to win in the 70 percentile. So that is how you can dictate parlays, but you have to. Like I said, you have to. To be able to do parlays, you have to know the true probability of the legs that you're putting in. Because if you don't know the true probability of the legs that you're putting in, you're not going to be able to know exactly the percentage rate of how you can win doing that. Because if you're blindly throwing in these heavy numbers, you're not going to be able to win. You're not going to be able to do it. You will be able to, like I said, maybe occur the feeling of winning every couple times, doing it blindly, but you can't, because if you do it 3 times and lose, but the 4th time you win, you're losing money. You can't do it like that. It's not how you could do it. Okay, you have to understand that. You have to be able to know the true probability behind the legs. If you find the true probability and you know exactly what the true probability of each leg that you put into a parlay is, you could literally go to a probability calculator and put in those percentages, and it'll spit out and tell you exactly the percent of the possibility of you being able to hit that parlay that you're doing. So that is how you can put in a parlay and give yourself the best opportunity at actually winning, rather than just donating. Like I said, 99% of people do when they're betting parlays. They just donate because they have no statistical advantage whatsoever, and they don't know anything about the numbers that they're putting in. They just know that if they put in 3 legs and they put $20 on it, that they're going to make more money than $20. That's all they think about. They don't think about the actual numbers and the probabilities of those events occurring. So I promise you, if you go and you are trying to put in a parlay and you find the actual statistical advantage that you have there, you will do a better job doing that rather than just blindly throwing some stuff together and hoping that it happens. As always, guys, I'm Frank with Linemaker Sports. I'll see you guys in the next video. Till then, I'm out.